TV. Today is Wednesday, the 17th of June, 2026. And we are coming to you live from Johannesburg.
And in Nguthembi Ngosingoma, we are coming to you live from Emperor's Palace in Gauteng, where the 19th Conference of Speakers and Presiding Officers of the Commonwealth Africa region, known as CSPOC, is taking place. This is a significant gathering of the parliamentary leadership on the continent, bringing together speakers, deputy speakers, and presiding officers from across Africa to engage on the future of democratic governance, accountability, and sustainable development.
That is correct. And the CSPOC program began on 12 June, the preliminary meetings and working groups, while the main conference of speakers and presiding officers officially commenced yesterday, which was the 16th of June, with the formal opening ceremony right here at Emperor's Palace. Now, the National Council of Provinces and the Gauteng Provincial Legislature are the co-hosts of this conference. And yesterday, despite some technical difficulties, I had a chance to sit down with the Speaker of the Gauteng Provincial Legislature, the Honorable Morakane Musupre, who we spoke to about the unique opportunity the province received to host this conference as a subnational legislature. Now, this is the first time a legislature at provinces level is hosting this conference.
What went into the planning, and your reaction is telling me all already.
To find
Tell us about
these
the
resources
of
to
this
have
huge
this project
conference
in
and how
place.
it came about.
I will ask the Secretariat to have a copy for every member, a copy of this presentation, so that I can quickly go through it. I will start with the introduction for those of you who have just heard about the project. The Commonwealth Parliamentary Association Africa region embarked on the ambitious and transformative investment initiative.
So we needed
to develop a five-star
talking
hotel
to them on a daily basis to
Dodoma,
understand that we are
Tanzania.
within the rules.
The project was unanimously approved by the
precepts
CPA
of the
Africa region
Constitution,
annual general meeting
but
held in
also
Zanzibar in
the
2019.
feedback from the
And
previous
as part of the strategy to strengthen the region's
CSPOC
long-term
had
financial
to fit
stability,
into this because
so
it's a build-up
for so many
the
years,
global,
the region has relied on
the global
annual
conference.
subscription from member
So
branches,
Botswana and ourselves had to be
finance
talking to
programs and
each other
activities. While this support
consistently.
has been invaluable,
The Tanzanian Secretariat were leading us in what needs to be done. This work was
that can
it
secure
was
the
about
region
five to 6 months to get it ready. There's your conference documents, your conference bags, your conference, dating the venues, the correct venues.
Yes.
Communicating with all the countries. I mean, 63 countries, there's a lot. Yeah, and we had to make sure, and some of the countries at that time are going through the elections. We also have to accommodate them and make sure that whatever inputs or motions that they had tabled don't fall through the cracks because they're going through a process. So it's a lot of work that needs to be done. But what is important is that the build-up and the channels are kept straight and they make sense later on. Yeah, we looked at different venues within Gauteng, and there are plenty. We could have used any, and all of them could have been appropriate.
Yes.
But then, exactly what you were saying, the commemoration, the 50 years, the 30 years, including the Women's March as well. Yes. So we felt, no, this must have significance for all the African countries, but for South Africa in particular. For Gauteng, obviously, we will brag. We have the bragging rights. We appreciate that. So we then asked our officials to then do proper research.
Yes.
Also, it included talking to the Secretariat in Tanzania. They had to agree to that. And when we proposed this venue, they were ecstatic. They were more than happy. That yes, let's do that. It makes sense for South Africa. And you know, we were with them earlier on at the Hector Peterson Memorial. So everybody was happy that we chose this particular venue because of its significance. But for us as Gauteng also, and I was asked that question earlier on, that why a hotel, a gambling venue for that matter. You had to remind people that no. There are many facets to growing an economy. And if we can work our history into it, then the good becomes that much better.
Welcome back. This morning on Parliament TV, we are going to take some time to look back at yesterday's proceedings before we look forward to what will be happening today later in the program. Now the theme for the conference is proactive parliaments and sustainable development, an imperative for political stability in Africa.
And over the course of the conference, discussions will focus on strengthening public trust in governance, promoting innovative parliamentary leadership, harnessing the potential of Africa's youth, and of course leveraging technology to build more responsive and effective legislatures.
And during this conference, delegates will also reflect on the importance of collaboration among Commonwealth legislatures in addressing shared priorities. Parliaments play an important role in safeguarding democracy, advancing development, and ensuring accountability. This is something the chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, Honorable Refilwe Mtsweni-Tsipane, alluded to in her opening address. Let's hear what she had to say.
It is with great humility and honor that we assume this august stage to welcome all honorable members and our distinguished guests to the official opening session of the Conference of Speakers and Presiding Officers in South Africa in the beautiful province of Gauteng. We take this opportunity on behalf of the Parliament of the Republic of South Africa, together with all our 9 provincial legislatures, to send our warm fraternal greetings as we gather as heads of continental parliaments and sub-legislatures under the auspices of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association. We also take this opportunity to thank the Gauteng Provincial Legislature under the capable leadership of our Speaker, as well as the Standing Committee of CSPOC for a job well done. Can we give them a round of applause? In the successful planning, organizing, and convening of this prestigious conference. In the interests of our guests and fellow members of the an imperative for political stability in Africa. What is invoked are the common challenges, ongoing struggles, and shared interests that enjoins us together as we deepen our collective vision towards the building of a better Africa and a better world. Program Director, this theme underscores through its thematic areas Native spaces democracy and good governance in all member countries. In this regard, this Conference of Speakers and Presiding Officers must, in its conclusion, in its resolutions, as well as in its declaration, pronounce clear positions reflecting our collective priorities as we confront standing challenges of the past, present, and future. Through these deliberate efforts to strengthen collaboration among speakers, presiding officers, and parliamentarians, an opportunity is created to redefine and advance the role of the Commonwealth Parliament and beyond as true instruments of representatives and participatory democracy. In addition, we hope this conference plays its role to inform the CPA Africa region joint approach and agenda setting as we approach the Commonwealth Parliamentary Conference to be held in the city of Cape Town in September 2026. As we discuss standard approaches to our common challenges, our people's expectation is the absolute intellectual sovereignty of our ideas and policies through critical spaces of diplomacy. Notwithstanding the current geopolitical climate marked by multiple interconnectedness and interlocking crises, we must assert our interests through cooperation and collective agency. We must recreate a transformative agenda through maximum use of parliaments, more involved and rooted in the core issues that affect our peoples, especially our women, our youth, our elderly, our people with disability, and other more vulnerable groups within our communities. In accordance, this conference, through its thematic areas, is providing opportunity to elevate both old and new conversations towards new possibilities. As I conclude, Program Director, to this end, we are confident that the conference objectives will build consensus on the collective role of parliaments and enhance mechanisms of parliamentary diplomacy towards a sustainable and a more stable future. Let us take this opportunity to think through and shape policies that affect our nations and face the challenge of how we achieve more unified positions. Once again, we welcome you all to this Conference of Speakers and Presiding Officers, CPA Africa Region. We appreciate the opportunity afforded to South Africa to host you in our shores, hoping that delegates will have a great stay and experience of our hospitality and Ubuntu in this great province of Gauteng over the next few days. We hope to receive you all once again in the CPC in September 2026 in the beautiful city of Cape Town. Nkosi Sigelela i-Afrika. I thank you.
Welcome back. One of the perks of working for Parliament TV, and of course watching it, is that we get to talk to some of our public officials to get more insights into processes or ideas, or even just their thinking. CSPOC, for instance, had the opportunity to talk to the chairperson of the National Council of Provinces yesterday after her address, and it was a very informative conversation. What interesting insights you got from that conversation, CSPOC?
Because, you know, it's always very interesting when we get to the chairperson to sit with us here on Parliament TV. And I think from our conversation, one of the biggest highlights for me was how she stressed the importance of parliamentary cooperation across the African countries, right? In terms of sharing ideas, in terms of sharing experiences, promoting democratic governance, and ensuring that the trust is put back into democratic governance throughout these countries. She also spoke to the significance significance of South Africa stepping up and taking the responsibility to host the 19th CSPOC. As we know that this was supposed to be hosted by Botswana, but because of some challenges there, South Africa decided that they would take on that. It's a huge challenge, and it's quite a huge task, right? But what also came out for me was that she said that it advanced the spirit of Ubuntu, right? And it also showed South Africa's commitment to ensure the continuation of the work of CSPOC. Because she mentioned that had they just let it rest, then the work would not carry on. But above that, we had to speak about Youth Month, right? And the importance of the youth. And she highlighted the importance of youth involvement and inclusion. She said that it's important not just to hear the youth, especially as public representatives, not just hear the youth, but listen to them and address their issues. And of course, in terms of Parliament, she says that they have to fulfill their mandate in terms of performing proper oversight, right? Ensuring that they hold the executive to account. But apart from that, make laws that speak to the lived realities of the youth. And this, of course, speaks to the idea that the youth are the ones who are plagued with unemployment, with poverty, with issues such as substance abuse, because of these plethora of issues that we have when it comes to our economic challenges. It was a beautiful conversation to have, and especially because she's pointed out what her role as Parliament, as the NCOP, is when it comes to some of these issues. Yeah, so it was very informative. And of course, here is a short clip where the chairperson of the NCOP explained why hosting the conference is important for South Africa and also why it is relevant to public representatives. Let's take a look.
Well, this conference is very important, as you know, that as parliaments across the SADC, we have come together through this forum called CSPOC, which is a conference for speakers and the presiding officers of our respective parliaments. Now, the main purpose of this is to exchange knowledge and learn best practices amongst ourselves. And therefore, it is very critical that we come together from time to time as we are meeting biannually to look at the issues that are new issues that are emerging. What do they say to us, and how then do we begin to address them? Now, obviously, the systems that are there in place, are they still relevant? Are they still responding to the issues at hand? If not, how do we then begin to harness and close the gaps that we shall have identified? And subsequent to that, resolutions are taken, which will then inform the implementation from our respective parliaments and legislatures. And as we meet again, we then take stock, starting from the resolutions that we have taken from previous conference, and say, what is it that we have done to address the issues? Because in the end, we need to strengthen our oversight roles. We need to strengthen our accountability such that we respond appropriately, timeously to the challenges that the communities, which they are the people who have sent us and trusted us with this responsibility, to come and represent them, to come and champion their plight and aspiration so as to ensure delivery of services. You see, as parliamentarians, before we speak, we need to have a good sense of what is contained on the ground. And it is through public participation programs that we undertake and oversight programs that we undertake and interface with our communities. We have to listen to their plight, and we have to get the ideas and their views. Having collated that, we then come back and say, what does this mean to us? And what does it call for? And as we engage and interface as parliamentarians across the continent and even amongst ourselves as South Africa, we then put those perspectives into useful use, which will then by and large influence the policy directions that we need to take as a country so that we are responding to the emerging challenges that our country is faced with. On our own, I can come as a refiller, I'll speak my mind. But at the end of the day, does that really addresses the issue that the people want?
Yes.
And I'll cite an example. You go to a particular area, people are not comfortable, they're not happy, forever striking. And you go there, you realize one challenge. Oh, okay, they don't have water here. Probably this is a challenge that they're faced with.
Yes.
And you come with all your infrastructure, you put up the state of the art, the best of the best infrastructure so that they can have water. But those communities, they still continue to strike. You did not ask them exactly what is their challenge. Now, only to find that that challenge would not have cost government an arm and a leg. They are comfortable with their current situation, but their challenge is just a mere thing that would not have spent cost government even a cent. So that misalignment, it creates problems and it perpetuates the unrest that we see. But if you have that insight of going down, listen to them, hear their plight, and you would not miss the critical aspects of their challenges, and you will respond adequately. And even if somebody else comes and says, but you know, this government is not doing anything for you.
Yes.
Look at you, don't have water. No, so no, we're happy. This government has helped us a great deal because you have addressed their immediate contentious issue at hand. And therefore, all those issues, if they are correctly captured, they will then inform our processes, our policy directive as government, so that we respond appropriately. So as Parliament, we have a role to play, to go out there, listen to our people, as we even interface with our counterparts. We'll still pose those questions. We've got this challenge. This is what our people are saying. How have you fared in your country? Have you ever experienced this? And how did you address this? And what was the ultimate outcome, having addressed the challenge? So all those interactions, they will then assist us in shaping the direction in which we need to take as a country.
And of course, that was a conversation with the chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, Ms. Refilwe Mthweni-Tsipane. Now, let's take a look at the acting premier of Gauteng, Ms. Faith Mazibuko, and see what she had to say in her welcoming remarks at the opening ceremony yesterday.
Honorable delegates and honorable members, Gauteng may be the smallest province geographically in the south of Africa, but it is undoubtedly the economic heart of every country, and it is the economic heart of our country and the Africa as a whole. And one of the most dynamic regions on the African continent, it is a home to more than 16 million people. Gauteng contributes over a third of South Africa's gross domestic product and serves as a gateway for trade, investment, innovation, and skills development. Our province hosts the headquarters of many leading companies, financial institutions, and multinational corporations. It is home to major transport, logistics, and communication networks that connect South Africa to the rest of Africa. As the Gauteng provincial government, our priorities are very clear. We're focused on growing the economy, creating jobs, improving infrastructure, strengthening public services, and enhancing community safety, accelerating digital transformation, and building sustainable cities that improve the quality of life for all our residents. We recognize that economic growth must be inclusive. It must also create opportunities for our young people, for women, for entrepreneurs, and communities that have historically been excluded from the mainstream economy. This commitment guides our efforts to attract investment while ensuring that the development benefits of all our people. Distinguished guests and honorable members, Gauteng's success cannot be separated from the success of the whole of the rest of Africa. Our province occupies a unique position as a bridge between South Africa and the broader African continent. We are part of a rapidly integrating Africa that is increasingly connected through trade, technology, finance, infrastructure, and people-to-people relations. The implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area presents unprecedented opportunities to unlock intra-Africa trade, and it expands markets and stimulates industries and also industrial development. Gauteng is strategically positioned to support this vision through its advanced financial services sector, manufacturing base, logistics capabilities, and innovation ecosystems. We are encouraged by the growing footprint of the South African companies operating across the continent. These corporations have become important contributors to economic development, investment, skills transfer, job creation, and technological advancement in many of our African countries. Whether in banking, telecommunications, retail, mining, manufacturing, infrastructure development, or professional services, South African businesses have helped strengthen economic integration and deepen partnerships among African nations. Their success demonstrates what is possible when African enterprises collaborate, invest, and grow together. At the same time, we recognize that the future of African prosperity depends on mutual benefit. The continent will rise not through competition amongst ourselves, but through cooperation, partnerships, and shared growth. We must continue building an African value chain, supporting local industries, encouraging innovation, and creating an environment where business can thrive across our borders. Honorable members, the world is changing rapidly. New technologies, evolving markets, climate challenges, and geopolitical shifts require us to rethink how we position our cities, our regions, and our economies. In this regard, Gauteng is deliberately positioning itself as a global city region. We envision a Gauteng as a province that is globally connected, economically competitive, technologically advanced, and environmentally sustainable. A province that attracts investment, talent, and innovation from across the world while serving as a platform for our African growth. Our aspiration is to strengthen Gauteng's role as a leading center for finance, commerce, logistics, research, innovation, advanced manufacturing, and digital industries. We are investing in infrastructure modernization, smart technologies, and partnerships that will ensure our province remains a destination of choice for investors and entrepreneurs. As a global city region, Gauteng seeks not only to compete internationally, but also to contribute meaningfully to Africa's development agenda. We believe that global relevance and African solidarity are mutually reinforcing objectives. This conference provides an important platform for discussing the role of responsible corporate leaders in achieving these ambitions. Strong governance, ethical leadership, sustainable and accountable are essential foundations for the economic growth and social progress. As leaders from government, from business and civil society, we have a collective responsibility to ensure that economic development translates into improved lives for our people and greater prosperity for our continent. May your deliberations over the coming days generate practical solutions, strengthen partnership, and inspire new opportunities for collaboration across Africa and beyond. Together, let us build a continent that is prosperous, innovative, connected, and globally influential. And together, let us ensure that Africa's growth story benefits all its people. And together, let us position Gauteng as the Africa's leading global city region and a gateway to the opportunities for the future.
Welcome back, and to those who've just joined us, you are watching a live broadcast of Parliament TV on DSTV channel 408. We're also live on all our social media platforms at Parliament of RSA. It is a live broadcast of the 19th Conference of Speakers and Presiding Officers taking place here at Emperor's Place in Gauteng.
And of course, if you've just joined us, that was the acting Premier of Gauteng, Ms. Faith Mazibuko, who was providing her welcome speech there at the opening ceremony that happened yesterday on the 16th of June, right here at Emperor's Palace.
And of course, just to remind those who have joined us of the primary objectives of the 19th CSPOC conference, which is not to pass binding laws or treaties. Rather, it serves as a forum where speakers, deputy speakers, presiding officers, and parliamentary leaders share experiences, strengthen parliamentary institutions, and promote democratic governance across Commonwealth countries in Africa.
And it's important to note that there are CSPOC standing rules that regulate the meetings that they have. And according to those rules, there are 3 core aims. And one of them is to maintain and encourage the impartiality and fairness of speakers and presiding officers. The second one is to promote knowledge and understanding of parliamentary democracy. And the third and last one is to support the development and strengthening of parliamentary institutions.
And to those asking themselves, what does the conference actually do? The conference provides a platform for parliamentary leaders to exchange best practices on legislative oversight and governance, as well as discuss common challenges facing African democracies. I mean, we know what are some of those challenges, and also develop approaches to improving accountability, transparency, and public trust in legislatures. Also, building cooperation amongst African parliaments and legislatures, which I think it's very important that that is done, and also consider how parliaments can contribute to broader continental priorities such as development, youth empowerment, trade, food security, as well as climate resilience.
And for those of you who are probably wondering, well, what has come of this? What is the outcome of these discussions? And what has the conference really achieved? Well, because it's just a forum and not a decision-making body, its achievements are best measured in terms of institutional influence rather than legislation. Now, over the years, the conference has, 1, strengthened parliamentary cooperation across Africa. It has advanced parliamentary democracy and governance. It has further elevated continental development issues. Of course, when you talk about Africa, you're talking about climate change, food security, the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area, public trust in institutions, youth development, digital transformation, and technology in legislatures. Now, further, it has promoted stronger and more proactive legislatures. And of course, currently in 2026, the conference focuses on proactive parliaments and sustainable development. Of course, this is a reflection on a broader shift from legislatures being reactive institutions and rather proactive when it comes to the needs of its people.
And if you might be wondering, why is the 2026 conference so significant? The Gauteng conference is noteworthy for 2 reasons. It's the first time a subnational legislature, the Gauteng Provincial Legislature in this instance, has hosted the conference. Previously, only national parliaments hosted it. And secondly, it coincides with the 50th anniversary of the Soweto uprising. We all know what happened on 16 June 1976, and since it is Youth Month, we are on those celebrations, also giving additional emphasis to youth participation, democratic accountability, and Africa's development agenda. Now, the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Mr. Ronald Lamola, stated unequivocally that there is no excuse for violence against foreign nationals in our society. He, however, reiterated the call for Africans to unite in building resilient economies to ensure that there is no forced migration that exposes Africans to harsh conditions. Let's listen in.
We meet as custodians of democratic institutions and partners in Africa's developmental journey. I welcome you to South Africa and to this conference on strengthening parliamentary democracy across our continent. Like the traditional African port, the moment we are in rests on 3 legs: the significance of the place in which we meet, the history carried by this day, and the meaning of the week before us. Each leg offers a point of reflection for our deliberations in the coming days. The first leg is the significance of this place. As many of you will know, this venue was the first seat of multi-party negotiation process. It was here that the door was prized open to the new South Africa on which generations of activists at home and abroad had their sights set. Within these walls and along these corridors, certain enemies found common ground to reach an agreement for a democratic South Africa. That agreement laid the foundation for a constitution that is widely acclaimed for its affirmation of human dignity, democratic values, and social justice. This year we mark 30 years since the adoption of that constitution, the birth certificate of our young democracy. The second leg is the 50th anniversary of the 1976 Youth Uprising, an uprising that began in Soweto on this day and soon spread across the country. As we reflect on that chapter, one lesson stands out. The 1976 generation accords special importance to the independency of Angola and Mozambique as precursors to the uprisings here in Soweto in South Africa. Those victories shaped their consciousness and strengthened their conviction that just as Portuguese colonialism had been defeated, apartheid too could be brought to its knees. The story of Africa's contribution to our freedom struggle comes sharply into view through the 1976 generation. Across the continent, your countries became safe havens for young South Africans fleeing repression and determined to return home to a free South Africa. That contribution is not lost on us. Indeed, our final victory over apartheid would not have been possible without the unwavering solidarity of different generations of Africans on the continent and in the diaspora. The third of this proverbial African port is the significance of the days ahead. When the world marks World Refugee Day on the 20th of June 2026, together these three legs bring a pressing question into sharp focus. How does migration as one of the defining realities of the 21st century connect with the aspirations of the world's most youthful continent, which is our African continent? Let us consider the picture as it is today. More than 45 million Africans live outside their countries of birth. Over half, or around 25 million, reside in other African countries. This challenges the image of Africa as a continent of mass exodus. In fact, most Africans who leave their countries remain on the continent. Migration also features increasingly in the plans of young Africans. A 2025 Afrobarometer survey across 38 countries found that nearly 6 in 10 people aged between 18 and 25 had considered leaving their countries in search for better prospects. Work and relief from economic hardships are the principal motivations. For many young Africans, migration is less of a free choice than a response to constrained prospects at home. Our own statistics, along with those of the International Organizations for Migration, estimate our migrant population to be in the range of between 3 to 4 million, or roughly 5 and 7% of our population. Crucially, as observed by the World Bank in 2019, international migration statistics seldom account for irregular and undocumented migrants. Indeed, all major migrants receiving countries, South Africa included, face challenges of irregular migration. Migration is therefore a global phenomenon. It's not uniquely South African. This movement coincides with the hardening of attitudes towards migrants and refugees across many parts of the world. Across the world, regressive political movements are gaining support by mobilizing resentment against migrants and refugees. The politics of division, exclusion, and scapegoating is becoming increasingly common. But we should also be honest about what lies beneath these developments. For decades, our societies have experienced escalating conflicts, deindustrialization, weakening labor protections, and stagnant economics that have failed to positively change the fate of ordinary people. Pandemics and raging wars have only deepened many of these features. At the same time, global inequality is widening, with the top 10% owning roughly 75% of the global wealth, while the bottom 50% only merely 2%. And while migrants did not create these problems, they have increasingly become the convenient targets for frustrations rooted in much deeper economic and social challenges, contestations for limited economic opportunities, jobs, and access to services like healthcare and education. So what you see today as the anti-foreign immigration protest in our country, it is informed by the above statistics. The contestation for the limited resources, particularly in the lower end of the working class of any society, including our own society. And let me state this unequivocally. There is no excuse for violence against foreign nationals in our society. Violence directed at migrants and refugees is a blight on our democracy and a betrayal of our constitutional promise of dignity, equality, and the fundamental human rights for all. The intimidation of migrants, looting of businesses, and destructions of property are reprehensible acts of vigilantism. They threaten our democracy and risk tearing apart our relationship with the continent and the world. Migration has always been part of South Africa's story and heritage. Our mines, farms, cities, and industries were built by generations of migrant workers from across Southern Africa and within South Africa itself. This is the reason why our young democracy approached migration with an unwavering humanitarian and pan-African commitment. We enshrined in the Constitution the rights of migrants, acceded to international conventions protecting migrants and refugees, restored citizenship to people whom it was arbitrarily denied, and dismantled racist policies that had favored white migrants from neighboring countries and further afield. We also removed barriers that had dangerously separated South Africa from its neighbors. 3 decades later, we remain committed to that humanitarian and pan-African vision, an open society governed by law, anchored in human dignity, and attentive to legitimate needs of its people. But we are also aware that we cannot manage this challenge alone. We must work with our neighbors in the region and the broader continent to address the root causes driving the flow of movement into South Africa. That means ending conflict and persecution, building productive economies, creating jobs for young people, and deepening regional integration. And I also implore you as members of parliament, in your parliaments, to measure your own executives. How far are we going with regional integration? The Africa Free Trade Area and cross-border economic zones, because these zones and the Africa Free Trade Area will be a great opportunity for us to grow the African economy, to create jobs in all parts of the continent, for all of us to make a meaningful contribution to the future of our children. I wish you fruitful deliberations in the next 3 days. Thank you very much.
And of course, if you have just joined us, this is Parliament TV special coverage of the Conference of Speakers and Presiding Officers of the Commonwealth. And that was the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Mr. Ronald Lamola, yesterday at the opening ceremony, providing a keynote address. Now, Teminkosi had the opportunity to speak to Mr. Ronald Lamola. And of course, Teminkosi, I'm going to turn the tables a little bit here like you did with me earlier on. Normally, you're the one who asks the questions. I'm going to ask the questions this time. You had the opportunity to speak with the minister. Just let me know what are some of the things that he highlighted, or some of the things that stood out for you during that conversation.
First of all, Chapo, I think it's important that we speak to the symbolism of the venue, because that's the first thing that the minister spoke to. You know, firstly, this conference that is taking place now is taking place at a very historic venue, because we know this is the venue that hosted South Africa's multi-party negotiation processes back in the early 90s. And you know, it was here that former adversaries negotiated transition from apartheid to democracy. And as this year marks now the 30 years of South Africa's constitution, it was described by the minister as the birth certificate of the country's democracy. He reminded delegates that the venue, when you were listening to the address, reminded the delegates that of the symbolicness of this venue, and that, like I said, it was here where all the negotiations take place. But when I was sitting down with him, the first thing that we looked at was issues of that impact on youth, considering that this event coincides with the 50th anniversary of the Soweto uprising. So he drew a direct connection between Youth Day and Africa's contribution to South Africa's liberation, also reminding the delegates that the freedom in South Africa was achieved through continental solidarity. We also spoke briefly on migration, you know, because it was the central theme of his speech. And one of the most significant discussions that he raised during our interview was that migration is no longer simply a border issue. It's an economic, social, and developmental issue affecting the entire continent. And of course, we know that he made it clear that while migration challenges must be addressed, there can be no jurisdiction for violence, intimidation, or vigilantism, which is directed at foreign nationals. Of course, we would have seen what is happening currently in the country, which is leading to that set date of the 30th of June. So also, in terms of that addressing irregular migration, said the government acknowledges that there is irregular migration and that creates challenges. It also spoke on the issues of border management as well, and immigration enforcement, which remains very important. He also said the migration must be lawful, orderly, and humane, and he spoke that the role that other countries need to play, the countries that the migration would go through their country to get to South Africa. He spoke on their role. And one key important matter that he spoke to was the danger of fake news. He warned the viewers about misinformation surrounding migration. He also cited examples where deaths of foreign nationals had been misreported, emphasizing that there has not been death of any foreign national as a result of the current protests that are taking place around the country, even though he also mentioned that there might have been one or two deaths of foreign nationals, but they are not, such deaths are not related to the current events that we see on TV. Another issue that, like I said, he highlighted the issue of the growing danger of misinformation, particularly on social media, which can inflame tensions and undermine social cohesion.
And I think I think he was the right person to have that keynote address with, because this is quite a thorn when it comes to the African continent and those political stability issues. And I think the minister made a very good point when it comes to ensuring that the facts are out there. Also encouraging people to visit these places and have conversations with South Africans regarding the matter.
Definitely. You called on all the I mean, we have a number of African countries represented in this conference. It is one of the biggest events of 2026. He invited the delegates here, in particular the speakers and the presiding officer, to go and engage with the citizens of their country, particular on the issues that are happening in the country. And the minister was very clear also in the expression that collaboration amongst African nations is important. Let's listen to what the minister had to say.
Indeed, it is very important that the African parliaments hold us as the executive into account on regional integration. How far have we gone in terms of the protocols of the AU, on AFCTA, on peace and security, and so forth, so that we are able to have measurable outcomes and show in terms of the performance indicators that this is the extent in which we've gone. Recently, the SADC region has come out with the indicators that shows that in the SADC region, we're almost at 21% in terms of regional integration. On trade, the parliaments will be able to call us, the ministers of trade and so forth, and say, why is this so? Why are we not moving? There has been a vision, there's been summits, resolutions have been taken, and how far are we going? Not only on trade, but also on the issues of migration. There's an African protocol on migration, how it must be dealt with, pull and push factors, which country must play, which role country of first entry and so forth. Also call them. How far are we going? What is the situation? Why are we not moving? And then also build on that to ensure that the executive does indeed account, but also execute on the outcomes of the summits.
You also spoke about an increasingly complex and fragmented global environment. So what are the biggest geopolitical challenges currently facing African countries?
Yeah, the recently ended conflict between the US, Iran, and Israel is a huge challenge for the African continent because it has impacted the price of energy or fuel in all its characteristics, whether it's diesel, petrol, oil, and so forth. Also, again, it has impacted the transportation of fertilizer. And as you are aware, in the African continent, in the next month or so, it will be the plowing season, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa. So these are issues of huge geopolitical impact to the continent, but also the conflicts in Sudan is one of the biggest humanitarian crises, which I believe that parliamentarians also have a role to play to hold governments to account. What are we contributing to regional peace? And also South Sudan will have to go to their first democratic elections as a new nation. South Africa is empowered by the African Union to support that process. But we need to see that indeed democracy end up becoming a victory in South Sudan. They exit the revitalized peace agreement and we see processes. And Parliament also has a role to oversight that process, and not only our Parliament, but many parliaments in the continent which have been entrusted by the African Union. It's by working together. The Africa Standby Force has now been operationalized in terms of the last resolution of the summit. But there are many other security threats that we need to work as a unit, as a cohesive, not only in terms of peace and security, but also environmental. Some of the issues that are leading to migration, to displacement of people, is environment, is droughts, and so forth. It always leads also to food insecurity. So all these are issues that we need to work together, including issues of cybersecurity, which are also becoming more complex, but also becoming one, because there is no country in the global space. In the cybersecurity world, it's one world, and someone can do something from anywhere. So these are issues that also need collaboration in the African continent.
Why do conferences such as CSPOC still matter to the ordinary African citizen?
They may look not impactful or of no use, but the laws that citizens see are a product of cross-border engagements and exchange of views and ideas. So this conference becomes very key, because it gives the parliaments exchange of platforms, which laws works in Ghana and which ones they don't work in South Africa, and they can exchange. They can also look at best practices, the tools of analysis, the tools of implementation, the tools of oversight. It supports the work of parliamentarians as they do their job on a day-to-day basis. And in that regard, it will be impactful on the service delivery from the executive, from where the local municipalities, and it will trickle down to the ordinary citizen, because all these laws that they are talking about are not implemented in heaven. They must be implemented in the world. They must be implemented to every human being on the planet, in the African continent.
Welcome back. Of course, you're still watching Parliament TV, and this is our live coverage of the 19th Conference of Speakers and Presiding Officers of the Commonwealth that is held here at Empress Palace in Gauteng. And of course, that was the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Mr. Ronald Lamola, and he was in conversation with Thembi Nkosi just yesterday. Now, of course, we did tell you that this is a program that is going to run through the whole week, and let's just get you what it is that you can expect for today. And today, earlier on, from 9 to about 11 o'clock, there was a general meeting that was held between the presiding officers and the speakers, and of course the delegates that are part of the conference. Of course, there will be plenary session 1 that is scheduled to start at 11 to about 1 o'clock. And the topic there is the role of parliaments in enhancing public trust in governance. The mover is set to be Botswana, and the seconder is set to be Uganda, and the session chairperson is the Gambia.
And of course, after that session, it will be lunch, and after lunch, you can expect plenary session 2 from 2 o'clock till about 15:30, and the topic will be reforming and developing initiative mechanisms and strategies for effective and proactive parliamentary leadership in Africa's development. Of course, the mover for that topic would be Cameroon, and the seconder will be Lesotho, and the chairperson will be shared by Tanzania.
And of course, you can see those proceedings or follow those proceedings live right here on Parliament TV, channel 408, or across our social media platforms on YouTube at Parliament of RSA. Now, of course, an interesting aspect of this conference is, of course, the opening ceremony that happened yesterday, and the fact that it coincides with South Africa's commemoration of the 50th anniversary of the 1976 student uprising. Let's get to see some of those remarks.
Youth of 1976 has left indelible memories for all of us in South Africa. The struggle that they have waged has seen us transitioning from the apartheid system to a new democratic dispensation. It was through their blood and sweat that today you and I are seated here enjoying the fruits of the struggle that they have waged then, which started with a noble cause to say that let us be afforded an opportunity to learn in a language that we are comfortable with. But it ended up with a massacre where we saw young people being brutally attacked by the repressive apartheid system. That has since, the struggle has since been taken forward by the youth of today, in that they've built on what has been started by their counterpart and say that as youth of South Africa, what are the emerging challenges that we are facing, that we really need to take the struggle forward. As you'd hear that, yes, they do acknowledge that South Africa, we are free, but they are further saying we will never be free until there is economic emancipation for the young people. That speaks to the current situation of the high unemployment rate that we are seeing. That speaks to the question of the inequality that we are grappling with. That speaks to the high levels of poverty that we are experiencing as South Africa. Now, in the main, we need to also acknowledge that South Africa, more and more, it's becoming a younger country. Now, the more high levels of unemployment are prevalent towards our young children, we must appreciate the consequences thereof. We are prone to have high levels of crime within a country, and the level of anger and anxiety amongst ourselves, the psychosocial aspects will be quite rife and very prevalent. So we're dealing with a number of issues. So that balance is very critical.
Yes.
Now, as this government, we really need to be responsive and come up with policies and system and initiatives that seeks to address the challenges that our children are facing by ensuring that our economy grows quite exponentially to a point where it addresses the issues of high unemployment rate and poverty, the inequalities that they are experiencing. On the same vein, we must acknowledge and accept that our government has done quite tremendous work to address quite a number of challenges that were there, starting from no-fee education system, from ECD right up to university. But the question still remains, are the skills that our youth are taking responding to the economic challenges that the country is visiting? Now, that's a fundamental question that we still need to address so that as they complete school, they are gainfully employed, because they shall be possessing the necessary skills that are needed in a market for them to be gainfully employed. And therefore, those are some of the policy decisions that need to be taken, and therefore, as parliamentarians, we need to be alive to the realities. And also, as we do our work, we need to probe our counterparts in the executive. What is it that they are doing really to address these challenges such that they bring stability within our country, within our communities?
That was Tsepo there speaking to the National Council of Provinces chairperson, Ms. Refilwe Mchweni-Tsipane, yesterday. We'll be back again this afternoon at 1 for more interesting conversations at the 19th Conference of Speakers and Presiding Officers of the Commonwealth Africa region. But now we cross to the live proceedings. Goodbye.
We have so many other options we are looking at, but